We're talking the ins and outs of a coach that's on the outs. Pros and cons of Kevin Keatts in Raleigh.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We won't get too far in the mud. As we said, it is getting a little bit tiresome talking about where things stand on Kevin Keatts in this basketball program, but we thought it was certainly worth talking about the pros and the cons of potentially having him back again for an 8th season. I think things that we're hearing is it is still very much up in the air. It's not a firm decision like many of us would probably like to believe it is. There are several factors. We've talked about factors behind the scenes that need to be accounted for as well, but we're going to go with pros and cons here. Kenton, I'll let you kick off the pros for Keatts coming back next year. What you got?
I mean, the number one thing that everybody keeps talking about is the recruiting class that is coming in next year. We have two guys that are very good, and we'll get into the cons of that a little later, but starting off with the pros, we have two players that are very good in Paul McNeil Jr. and Trey Parker coming to Raleigh. And also they answer some definitive, not just questions, but liabilities we had in terms of shooting ability this year, because both of those two, say what you want about them, they can knock it down from darn near anywhere on the court.
Obviously heard really, really, really good things about Paul McNeil coming to Raleigh next year. He's an elite scorer coming into this program as just a freshman, assuming he does indeed make it to Raleigh. And is he a guy, like we've talked about, that would, immediately take over this program and take us to new heights? Probably not, because that is a lot to ask of a freshman, of course, but he is a very highly talented basketball player. And so just on that basketball level, you wouldn't want to miss out on a guy like that. Trey Parker is a lot of the same. Super dynamic athlete, can literally jump through the rafters of any building that he's in. And so two guys that obviously we've had some time to be excited about coming to Raleigh. We all know about the ongoing issues with Keatts getting these big name guys to actually arrive here on campus. So of course you do have concerns as always in that type of thing, but they're not two players that you would want to miss out on. And is it worth holding the program hostage over? No, but purely just looking at the potential for next year, you would want these guys to come to Raleigh to see what they can do. So certainly agree on that front. I'll give you the next one here. Something that Kenton and I have always said about Keatts, regardless, the man can recruit. He can go out and get it done on the road. And like I just mentioned, some of these names that never made it to Raleigh, there is still a little bit of credit that goes to Keatts for going out and identifying that top talent. All he can do on that front is identify the best basketball players that he can and get them to come to NC State. On his side, he has done that. The rest of the circumstances have played out, unfortunately, on Keatts' behalf. However, he has been going out and identifying top talent at the high school ranks and sometimes in the portal ranks, but it just hasn't quite worked out. And so in the event that Keatts may come back for an 8th season, he would get yet another crack at the portal. And the portal efforts didn't quite work out here in year 7, and all of the frustration is beyond warranted. A lot of us feel like, you've had plenty of chances. I get that.
Yeah, that's something that, we've talked about this. He can win on the couch. He can win with these players in the portal. He can win with high school guys. There's a question about how high is your ceiling for winning on the couch and winning in the transfer portal when you don't have tangible wins on the court? And I think that Coach Keatts has just about maxed that out.
Last pro here, and I guess this kind of speaks to the behind the scenes type of things. Monetarily, for this program, they wouldn't be lighting a ton of money on fire by having to eat his buyout. And I completely get, for a lot of fans and a lot of people that follow this program, that's not something that directly influences the fan. And so therefore, that's not exactly a big concern. The people that have to make these decisions in Boo Corrigan, in Randy Woodson, and everyone else involved in this athletic program, the monetary aspect to this is perhaps more important than anything else. And so not having to eat millions of dollars to rip the Band-Aid off and then start anew, I'm sure that is something that they are looking into thoroughly. And so I guess you could see that as a pro. Many of us might not, but nonetheless, it is something to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And this thing is a very real consideration in terms of, you think about the extension through 2028, you're going to have to light virtually 10 mil on fire.
Right.
Like that's, or somewhere, I believe, if we're just talking 25, 26, 27, 27, 28, at about 2.7 mil a pop, that's about $8 million, a little over $8 million that you're pretty much saying, hey,
having to go out and find a new guy as well.
Oh, and you got to pay the new guy, because the new guy ain't going to do it for the love of the game, with all due respect. Even if it's a NC State alum, you're not getting somebody who's like, I love this place so much. Yeah. I'll do it for $20K. Like we're not going to do that. So, that's definitely a part of it as well. These are the pros, and we're going to be very honest about the pros and the reasons that you should, just as well as the reasons that you shouldn't, and the cons, because like we always say on this show, no fluff pieces, no hit pieces. Yeah. We're just going to tell you what it is from our view.
Yeah, I'm extremely aware of the caveat. I'm not glossing over it. I'm not sugarcoating it. I know that the majority of people say, I don't care, spend the money. We can't do this anymore. We have to get somewhere fast. Totally get that. But from a program, from an AD standpoint, monetary aspect of all of this is extremely important. So you can see that as a pro. Now, the cons, Kenton, I'll let you kick this one off. What's your first con?
The apathy that's setting in around this program.
Yeah.
I want to be very honest about this, right? Anybody who knows me knows I enjoy being upbeat and excited about positive things. I don't like spending a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of zeal on that which is negative. However, Grayson can tell you there have been more times than we can count where it's like, we can't say that on air. It's just too negative. The fact that I even put the energy into that is a terrible thing. But here's what's worse. Most of the fans have moved beyond that point to the point where I'm not putting any energy in. Whatever happens is just, Grayson and I, we can do this all day, because obviously Grayson and I care about the Pack a lot. And it's not about you don't love the Pack if you've gone apathetic, because guess what? You have every right to feel that way. And as of these last few games, to be honest, against the Dirty Foot Club and against Duke, even Grayson and I, in getting up to record, it's like, man, do we even want to talk about this? We have to. We got to talk about this nonsense that happened. We got to talk about, we put together a good first half, and then all of a sudden, the wheels completely came off. We were riding on the rims at the end of this thing. And so, that apathy is going to spread far. It's going to spread wide. At that point in time, it really, to keep that environment around for another year, how much damage would you be doing to your basketball program? And how much would you need to repair that damage? Not just monetarily, but in goodwill toward the fans.
The apathy is very real, and the apathy is very loud. And that is something that is one of the top things that is probably going to be considered once the offseason officially gets underway, is a lot of the fan base is completely checked out of this basketball program. And again, Kent and I sit here, we cannot say as we blame you, because we feel some of those same symptoms. It is difficult to get on here every single night. Yeah, we got Duke again. Well, let that one slip. Carolina both times. Let both of those get away from us. Syracuse twice. You get where I'm coming from here. So the apathy is very real, and you start dipping into the definition of insanity, and you go through the same thing every year with minimal changes, and you get the same exact result. It's like, how much longer are we willing to sit through this? So that is a very important piece of this. My next two, I'll tie them together because I think they are related. It's program culture and roster construction. And I think one is definitely goes hand in hand with the other. If Keatts is here next year, I mean, even if he's not here next year, it will be yet another complete roster overhaul. You're going to have to account for transfers out. We don't know what numbers that will look like. You're going to have to account for, obviously, the three main contributors in Burns, Horn, and Morcell that are moving on from the program. So I'd have to imagine you're going to be looking at least probably 5 new faces coming out of the portal, if not more. And again, still too early to give a complete read on that. Not sure how all that's going to shake out, but we've talked about the importance of 3- and 4-year guys remaining in this program and establishing that culture. Next season, I'm not seeing where that's going to come from. That's another thing you'd have to stare down the barrel with if you do have Keatts in year 8. It's probably going to affect next year's program again. You can already see the writing on the wall for that type of thing.
Yeah, and this goes into what I was talking about yesterday, and who are the guys on the basketball team that you talk about, hey, this guy is NC State? Who are the guys? You could argue to Quavion Smith. Okay, cool. Who else?
Yeah.
Every other team that's of substance, that's about something at NC State, we can name multiple players. When you have a culture that's established, you have guys, gals, in this particular situation, guys that they demonstrate, and you can point to that player and say, he is what we're about. Right. And we just don't have that in basketball.
And my last part of a con here is player development. We've talked a lot about this as well. There is I was going to say seemingly, but it's much more apparent than that. There is a lack of player development from year to year to year. Casey Morcell would have been a crown jewel for this, but yes. I mean, he took a step back this year. That's the tough reality of this thing. So I'm not sure who you can look to over the course of Keatts' tenure and really say this was a successful development of his game throughout his entire time at NC State. It's just not there. And so that's another glaring con you'd have to look at in how would that change in year 8? What is going to convince us that will change in year 8? I certainly do not have the answers for that. In large part of what I just talked about in roster construction, it's going to be an entirely new team again next year. What would development look like for them on that front? Really have no idea at this point in time. And so those are pros and cons. I would like to encourage all of our listeners to give us your pros and cons in the comments. However, here's the caveat. I want you to really think about this. For cons, don't just say because we suck. Think about this. I want you to get in depth with this. Any potential pros you see, put them down. Cons you see, put them down.
We know that there will be overwhelmingly cons. We're okay with that.
That's fine. That's fine. But be insightful with it. Don't just be like, because we hate him. He doesn't get anything done here. We're not winning. We know all that. Tell us something we don't know. That's what I'm looking for here.
We're still excited to engage with the Locked On Wolfpack community, even when it is this moment. All we're asking, put a little thought into it.
I've said this before, but one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is interacting with so many different Wolfpack fans. So this is a prime example of that. We want to know what the pulse is. Well, we have a pretty good idea, but be creative with it. We want to know what you think are pros and cons for Keatts here in Raleigh. Coming up next with some spring football talk, looking at potential early risers on this team for 2024. After a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Their all-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal before you even check out. And you can buy tickets in only seconds with just a number of taps. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts, making it the place to find deals on last-minute seats. And with Gametime's guarantee, you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less on another site, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. A little bit of spring football talk for you here on Wednesday. The first part of our show did go a little bit long. I think that's warranted, though. So these last two portions of the show might be a little bit shorter just to catch back up efficiently. Spring football, we're talking early risers. Kenton, we've started to hear a couple names about some buzz early here in spring camp. Of course, still a month to go until the spring football game. But talk to me about one of the names you've heard in particular that really has seen a bump to their stock so far.
A guy that I was high on at the end of last year. I'm a big fella, so, I can't get away from the trenches. I can't, regardless of what I do, I try to get away, but it keeps pulling me back. And the one that's pulling me back today is Big Jacarius Peak. He was a large part. He was a large part of the offensive line's improvement late in the season last year, when we kind of established our identity as a team that was going to set the pace with running back by committee, getting KC back there as well as a part of that committee. He was a large part of that, and I remember watching that play against UNC where we formed like what looked like a crescent moon on inside zone because it was just a sea of red bodies moving, guys wearing white and baby blue on back, and he was a part of that as well. So, I'm hearing very good things about him. And I'll tell you what, this offensive line, we knew they were going to need some leadership after you lose a Dylan McMahon, right? Like, yes, I like Anthony Belton. I think that he's going to be spectacular and all that. But I'm hearing great things about Peak so far. He's been the early riser for me.
The offensive line, as it is virtually every year, it's going to start up front. And if they can establish their will, the rest of the offense will find success in that as well. So I certainly hope Peak will be an early riser because that would be very key to this program. Mine, and this will probably not come as a surprise, is it feels like every chance I get to talk about him, I do. Noah Rogers. I am already hearing buzz.
You love you some Noah Rogers, man. He better stay healthy or else he might replace me on this show. He going to replace me on this show if something go wrong, man, because I'll tell you what, Grayson, I'm just saying, man, you love you some Noah Rogers, but you're absolutely right. Proceed, brother.
The buzz around this kid, and as it has been for a long time, NC State wanted him desperately out of high school. To bring him back from Columbus, we talked about the impact of that a couple months ago. Already now hearing some buzz about him this quickly into spring camp is exactly where we need to be. This is exactly what you want to hear right off the bat. And if he can continue to develop throughout the rest of the spring into the summer and then be a force once we hit the ground running this fall when we kick this thing off, oh man, over the moon that I'm already hearing this name this early in spring.
Yeah, Noah Rogers, I mean, he was advertised as a do-it-all guy. He was advertised as a guy that's like, hey, he's right on the cusp of being a 5-star, and they don't just give those out. They don't just I can tell you as a guy who played with some 5-stars, they don't just give those to any old body, okay? It takes a special type of effort and a special type of player to earn that, and he was right on the cusp of that. So he's a really special talent. But I do agree. Some of the things that we're hearing is just like spectacular catch after spectacular catch. And he always is finding his way open. I'm going to tell you what. I love me a 7-Eleven receiver. Love me a 7-Eleven receiver. You know what that means, Grayson?
They're always
open. They're always open. Well, there's a defender next to him. No, there isn't. He's open. Well, they've got him bracketed. So what? He's open. Well, their corner's tall too. Don't care. He's open. Throw it to him. Let him make something happen. I like what I'm hearing out of spring ball about Noah Rogers as well.
We harped all season last year about finding KC some support. He was doing everything at a high level just by himself, but imagine if he had a little help. He's got some help now. I'm locked in on Noah Rogers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about the depth and the ability all around him, which, again, respectfully, was not there last year. And we went into the season last year. For anybody saying, well, wait, y'all said all these good things. Going into the season last year, we said, we're finally hearing about the receiving core, which we thought was going to be a concern. So, this isn't a situation where we're bumping up against the season before we hear anything about our receiving core performing well. This is straight out from the gate out. These guys are dominant. These guys are doing it. And especially against the Tony Gibson coach defense, that means something.
Hearing about receivers 2 weeks into spring camp is music to our ears. It is an absolute symphony based on what we saw last year. So more than enough good news here in just 2 quick weeks of spring football. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Wednesday show with some all-ACC honors given out to the women's basketball team after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy. But it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, with an M, million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. With the women's basketball regular season now over, the ACC doled out their all-ACC honors for this basketball season. Couple names for Wolfpack fans on the first team. Isaiah James received first-team honors. More than well-deserved. She had a phenomenal season. Sanaya Rivers, first-team all-ACC. Another one right where she belongs. Sanaya Rivers also picked up the honors for all-defensive team. Who could have seen that coming with the season that she put together defensively? Zoe Brooks represented the Wolfpack on the all-freshman team, and then the script writers decided to go absolutely crazy because they left Madison Hayes off of everything. And Madison Hayes has already announced that she's coming back for next year. Would you believe that we already have scripted the Madison Hayes Revenge Tour for 2024-2025?
This here is not even going to be a 2024-2025 Revenge Tour. It's starting in this ACC tournament.
Yeah.
Think about how insane this is, right? And let me say this right now. Let me make this completely clear. On Locked On Wolfpack, we do not wish injury on anybody, not even the Dirty Foot Club, right? We wish that they would have to take real classes and, be a tougher program at some point in time. But that's neither here nor there. Nobody won anything except Sanaya Rivers and Isaiah James being first teamers. That's it. That's all. On the team that is the number 2 team in the conference, that's it. Zoe Brooks made the all-freshman team as well. That's it. I'm telling you right now, Madison Hayes, with the way that she plays, with how geeked up she normally is, I'll tell you what, in the words of Fabo, they're going to be seeing spaceships from Bankhead trying to stop her.
Something that Madison Hayes does not need any more of is added motivation. And she just got a ton of it scooped onto her plate right before this ACC tournament. She might just take over this tournament by storm. Will I be surprised? Not a bit. Not a bit. She's got that bulldog mentality. And she's going to let it off the leash in Greensboro. I would hammer that home.
You're absolutely right here. And, to see the beauty of this team is they do it by committee. Everybody comes along and everybody shows up. But not only Madison Hayes, Mimi Collins didn't make nothing. River Baldwin, the player whose offense was only supposed to be auxiliary and additional, who has shown up and shown out for every time she was healthy this season. I'll tell you what. Back in the day, you remember that those days where Alyssa Cunane was the ACC Player of the Year, and you also had Kai Crutchfield and Kayla Jones and and all those players, and Jada Boyd winning ACC Sixth Player of the Year. We went on the streak of Sixth Player of the Year coming from NC State and all that. You remember those days, and all of a sudden, a little bit of being the 2 seed, a little bit of you're not the 1 seed anymore. Oh, how soon they forget. I'm betting on the Pack in this one. Like you said, the Vegas is about to open up fully to NC State on what, March 11th?
March 11th, next Monday.
Well, I'm betting it all on the Pack because the way that these teams have once again disrespected NC State, teams that finished way behind NC State having more players on these, I'm telling you right now, don't be surprised with what you see in this tournament.
That'll do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank y'all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. As I mentioned earlier, drop your comments down in the comment box. Give us your pros and cons to Kevin Keatts here in Raleigh. Tell us what you think about potential early risers for spring football. If you have another name on the mind, drop that down there. And then these women's basketball honors. Tell us what you think about Madison Hayes, Mimi Collins, and River Baldwin getting absolutely snubbed. And tell us how you think that might add some motivation once Greensboro comes calling here in just a couple days. That'll do it for us here on Wednesday. We will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.